Good evening. Welcome to the Celtic v Bayer Leverkusen live pre-match preview. I'm Kevin Graham, no Paul John Dykes, who's actually went to the game this evening. So we've decided to give him a night off, and this is probably the first match day without Paul since A Celtic State of Mind started doing these live match streams. So in tribute to that, I've kind of went for an away top background with a bumblebee banner. Nothing to do with the fact that I couldn't find the right colours, but I've just decided to go with this one. Nothing to do with the fact that I couldn't find the right colours. But I think it looks all right. I think everybody looks all right. Oh, Russell's back there. Now, thanks to everybody that's tuning in already from all over Europe, I'm sure, for an important night for Celtic tonight. Right away, we've been fired with a massive surprise with the team selection. And it's kind of excited us all. But then I think, just talking before we came on air there, we've got a wee bit of caution as well. Laura, how do you feel about McGregor and Kyogo coming back in this evening?
Well, I think if you had asked most Celtic supporters, what's the one player that they would want to return if they could pick one, it would have been either McGregor or Kyogo. So from that point of view, it's great news. But the thing I was saying before we came on here was I hope that somebody in the sort of staff has said, let's keep this on the down low, let's keep this quiet, that they're ready to come back to get some tactical advantage against Leverkusen. But not sure I can give us enough credit for that based on the way the season's gone so far. I think they'll definitely be a strength. My only worry is, like I think everybody would say, I hope they're not being rushed back too quickly, especially when, as I'm sure everybody's talked about before, we've got plenty to be doing in the league, never mind in the Europa League. So perhaps it would have been best to keep them for the weekend. But we'll see how it goes and see how ready they are. I'm sure we'll know within the first 10 minutes.
Definitely, Lawrence. What's your feelings now that you've seen the team? I'll read the team out. It's Hart, Ralston, Carter, Vickers, Starfelt, Montgomery, McGregor, Turnbull, Abada, Rogic, Jota and Kyogo. What's your feelings when you see that? And also, we'll go through the subs as well. Barkas, Bain, Scales, Beaton, Giacomakis, Ayeti, Soros, Shaw, McCarthy, Uragidi and Welsh.
Mate, cannot believe Turnbull and Rogic are in the same midfield again. Especially with McGregor just flat back. He's going to have to carry the two of them for most of this game. We know that. For me, it just doesn't work, the two of them in the same midfield. McCarthy's on the bench. Surely he was an option. Even the much maligned Beaton would have been an option to solid things up in there and take a bit of pressure off Calmac. Even maybe Beaton and McCarthy and play Callum as a number 10. I mean, he's a better number 10 than Turnbull or Rogic, in my opinion. So, yeah, a bit surprised to see us sticking by Rogic and Turnbull.
Russell, taking Lawrence's point there, they think maybe Ange is looking at that he might only get 50, 60 minutes out McGregor, and that's why McCarthy's on the bench. Because I'm like Lawrence, I thought if McCarthy and McGregor are fit, they both play. But Ange maybe is erring on the side of caution here, saying I'm maybe going to need McCarthy after 60 minutes when maybe Callum's run himself into the ground a bit.
I think it's interesting because when you look at McGregor not being at full fitness, you're actually looking at those four players. And let's be honest, you're only going to get 50, 60 minutes out of all four. Realistically, no matter which combination you start. For me, I've got to side with Lawrence on that one. I think that I would have went McGregor, McCarthy, and I appreciate that Lawrence is saying maybe McGregor further up the field because he probably is a better number 10 than the other two. However, I would have definitely went for McGregor, McCarthy, and then it's Turnbull or Rogic in that role. I've got to admit, I'm struggling to see the benefits with Rogic and Turnbull so far being an every single basically starting 11, the midfield pairing. I don't see it. I don't see the benefits of it. And I think a game like tonight, where judging by the comments you're seeing, the feedback we're all getting, I think it's fair to say we all feel we'll be under the caution times today, Kev, or tonight, I should say. And Are they really the two guys you would be hanging your hat on, and an unfit McGregor? I think, for me, I would have went with a bit more steel. Again, the options aren't great, I get that. But Rogic, Turnbull in this sort of game is bold.
It is extremely bold, and I think it's maybe tempered by, you look at the lack of options that Angie's had, Laura, and he's having a look at this and he's going, these guys haven't let me down so far, but McCarthy could be struggling. McGregor's only going to give me 60 minutes. I've got beat on who I don't really seem to trust because he hasn't really been playing. Sorrow has proved a bit raw. And McCarthy's not fit. Do you think that's actually came into this? Even though McGregor and Kyogo have come back, the fact that they're playing and who's surrounding them show the lack of options we actually got.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, we see people's predicted 11s, they say predicted or whatever, and that kind of thing, and it's really not hard to predict an 11 for Celtic these days because there's so many limited options. I have to agree though with Lawrence and Russell and say, we all get held to things that we say on this show, and rightly so. We'll enjoy everybody watching and, having a laugh with us about things we've said before. I'm as big a fangirl as David Turnbull as you'll find, but I have to agree he's not been up to par this season, and it's either been because of him individually or because him and Rogic don't fit in the same team. So you would hope that Ange looks at that and would normally think, right, I've got to go with another option, but I do think there's a bit of necessity over choice here, and I think potentially the way McCarthy was moving after his knock at the weekend, he was never going to be a realistic option coming in, or like you say, he's good enough for a half an hour at the end to kind of take over from McGregor. But again, I just think it's a case of we're very thin on the ground in a lot of positions, and he's got to play who's 100% fit, no matter whether they kind of fit the formation or not at the moment.
Forever and ever, Celtic comes in and says, use all 5 subs, protect Kyogo and Kalmak, let them blow off the cobwebs with 50, 55, 60 minutes. Lawrence, do you think that could be a case? Do you think this is maybe looking at the weekend to try and get some minutes into their legs?
I definitely think the weekend's a much more important game than this one. Yeah. How fit are they? They're definitely going to need something before the weekend. It's just, if they're only fit enough for 55 and Callum's having to cover that midfield with Rogic and Turnbull in it, it's a big risk, isn't it? It's a big risk of him aggravating again. Listen, we know Kyogo runs non-stop, he closes down, he puts a tackle in, so it's not without risks if that's the strategy, is it? Just give them 55, because they're going to have to put in a shift, both of those players. Hopefully we're playing them when they're 100% fit.
Lawrence, you that phrase "give them 55" made me shudder there, but I'll skip it.
So I'm expecting him to come off 89 minutes to go.
Celtic forever and forever. Never mention 55 when you're making a comment once ever again on this podcast, mate. What do you think, Russell, about that? Do you think this is like Ange wanting his best players on the pitch? He's went to them and go, will you give me a shift? And they both says aye. And he's went, I'm in such a situation here that I'm going to need to go for them. I'm going to need to actually play them.
It's difficult, Kev, because Sunday's now looming with such importance because of the obviously the negative results we've had now domestically as well. But the thing is, to flip it, is that this game is against a team, in my opinion, that is of such a standard. Can you really leave us just out there without your best players, even if they aren't quite maybe at 100% match fit? But you could be on the end of a Tonkin, and then before you know it, you're going into Sunday with confidence depleted even further. And I think that would be I think that's where maybe Andrew's going, damage limitation here. Maybe try and prevent a potential hiding by playing your best players. May well look at the second half, like the commenter alluded to, as going, right, we're faring okay here so far. Why don't, we get an hour off you, get the legs back, getting used to playing football again, because Sunday's coming very soon. Although I know the squad is depleted. I still struggle as a Celtic fan, and this isn't on the manager, by the way, in any way, shape or form, but I do shudder when I think of, not just at 55, Laura, but I shudder when we think of, doing one or the other. It's got to be like we're focusing on the league or the Europa League. Celtic, to me, has generated more than enough money over the last decade and has won enough trophies to be able to be competing in 2 competitions concurrently in a week. So that's not on the manager that he's not got that. It's not. And I do think there's maybe a bit of juggling with one eye on Sunday right now, but also knowing that in the here and now, the opposition you face are so good that we're going to need you for maybe the first hour or so, like the commenter alluded to.
Definitely, Laura. This Leverkusen side are actually making eyes at the big 2 in Germany and going, we're coming. We're going to actually give you a challenge. It's been a number of years in the making for this Leverkusen side, and we're still at an embryonic stage of a massive, massive rebuild. And we're in a tournament that our club hasn't really bought for. We're not prepared whatsoever for this tournament. But it's Celtic Park underneath the lights. We like to think it's got a mystical, magic, romantic aura about it. And we are looking at this team going, who can we actually rely on here? And McGregor and Kyogo coming back gives you that bit of a boost. But as you're saying, there's other players that we're looking at. They were looking at Turnbull. And we're going, is this going to be his breakout performance in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, Leverkusen are definitely outside of Dortmund and Bayern, are about as strong a team as you could come across from Germany. I have to confess, like, my knowledge of them stretched to, I knew about Leon Bailey before he went to Aston Villa last season, and thought maybe we're going to be playing against a less strong opposition when they've not got him. But I listened to Derek Ray on the 67 Hail Hail speaking to Hamish and David, and he had his usual fountain of knowledge about German football and seems to think, we're going to be really up against it tonight. Players like Turnbull, players like Rogic, players like, I could go through the entire team really. Abada, another one. Players who sometimes let the game pass them by if they're not having a good game. We can't afford that tonight. We need players to show their best, and we need players to actually have an impact, because we can't have any passengers. There's far too many times, and I say this a lot about players, where I would rather have a player who gives you a 7 or an 8 consistently rather than a player who gives you a 10 or a 2. And I think we've got too many of those players. Turnbull actually being one of the main culprits, but Abada, another one, who are either absolutely outstanding and, look like a generational talent, or do absolutely nothing in the game and are complete passengers. If we could get a 6, 7, 8 out of every single player on the pitch tonight, I would be much more happy with that.
Definitely, I agree with Laura there, Lawrence, that we need a consistent performance. We need 8 or 9 hour players to be an 8, 9 out of 10 to get anything out this game tonight. And over the last couple of weeks, that seems to have been beyond us. We played in spells in Betis when we actually controlled the ball for long periods, but obviously we had those moments of madness defensively and openly, and also in the game management as well. So what are you looking for? I mean, right away, I'm having a look at that back line, and Hart, Ralston, Carter, Vickers, Starfelt and Montgomery. They've got to all have 8, 9s out of 10s for us to actually get anything out of this game tonight.
Tell you what I'm looking for, kind of all 11 to give us kind of the kind of effort and application that Tony Ralston does. Players not to go hiding on the park, which has been happening too often recently. They just go hiding, they don't make an angle. They're quite happy to be blocked off with passes. If we could get 11 players on the park giving the kind of application Tony Ralston's given, see a massive improvement in team performance.
Russell, what do you think? You having a look at that back line? Who are you looking for to impress in that back line?
I feel like when you sign a Swedish international like Starfelt, for example, £4 million, I know you're saying we're nowhere near ready for this competition, and that is such a damning indictment of where we were, because this is actually the second European competition we've entered already this season, Kev. And if we're not ready for the first one, I think we'd all kind of realised when the Howe deal fell apart that whoever it is that takes over, again, not a nasty point at Ange, whoever takes over, we were going to be up against it to qualify. But come the Europa League, for it to be comments like you're making, which I'm not actually happy to disagree with, by the way, that we're not ready for this one either, you're going, what is going on? I think you're absolutely right. You're looking at defenders to make, the defenders you're looking to make an impact are the ones you've invested in. Now, it is a shame when you look at the Julian missing. I was on the phone to my brother before I came on here, and he was talking about at home when we beat Lazio and how confident he was, even before that game, that we could do something against Lazio. And he says today's the polar opposite, and obviously Julian got that winner, remember. But there's got to be a bit of responsibility on these guys as well. I think we were looking at it before when I looked at the back five, as you would call it now, when you include the goalkeeper. And there was over 100 caps between them, I think it was, against, was it the Livingston match? And you're going, I know Joe Hart takes up the majority of them, I get that. But there's still a lot of experience and a fair amount of transfer fees being shelled out. It's time now for the players to step up a bit here and go, we've got an opportunity against the team that we've got no expectation really against, but why not grasp it with both hands? You know, because this result for me tonight, if it was to be a positive one, could be a real kickstart for the season. So I don't think we just need to focus on the defence. I just think right across the park, if we were to have a team all playing at that level you were alluding to, Kev, what an amazing kickstart to the season we could get if we got a result tonight against the Lords.
Definitely, Laura. Russell makes an actually decent point there about Starfelt. He's a Swedish international. He's an experienced European player, and so we need to actually have a look at this tonight and go, you need to step up here, because his partner Cameron Carter-Vickers has looked the more impressive over the last few weeks.
Agreed.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a hard time about supposedly, not getting off Starfelt's back, and I do think, on reflection, possibly some of the stuff I've said, he's had better performances than I've maybe given him credit for. But I think what kind of concerns me about him and continues to concern me about him is, on paper, you're looking at him, Swedish international. He's gone for, decent amounts of money, both to us and to Rubin Kazan. And to be honest, when he came in, I kind of thought to myself, I was really excited from what I'd seen and what I read about him. And I just don't think he's lived up to the expectations that a lot of us had of him. I think we thought at the very least he would be good on the ball, because he's supposedly an Ange Postecoglou signing, and if anything, that's the worst part of his game. And the problem with that is you can be a bad passer in midfield or up front, but very often it doesn't cost you. If you're a bad passer in the back four, you can be giving away goals or at least serious chances. So it's one of those situations where he's maybe not as bad as me and some other people are making out, but he's certainly not lived up to the expectations that we would have had. And you just hope that you can see, as you try in every game, to see the best come out of him very early. Because again, like I said with Kyogo and McGregor, I think you'll know with Starfelt within the first 10 minutes if you're going to have a nail-biting first half with him, or if he's going to be absolutely fine. And you never know when he comes out which one it's going to be.
I mean, you're quite right there, and add to that, you've got Anthony Ralston, who's probably been one of the most consistent Celtic players this season, Lawrence, and you quite rightly actually lauded his leadership at times that he's shown on the pitch. You've got Adam Montgomery. Now, I haven't seen the Leverkusen side, so I don't know if Frimpong's playing or not, but Montgomery at left back, this is a big night for him, Lawrence.
I definitely. I mean, I think the last couple of performances, Montgomery's maybe dropped his level a bit. He's had some really good performances, but up against Frimpong, they're going to know each other quite well. They'll know each other's game. I think probably tonight we're going to see Montgomery testing a bit more defensively than we've seen so far, which will be interesting to see, won't it? Exactly how he does perform. I think he looks, when he goes forward, he looks really confident, doesn't he? He doesn't fear anyone. He can beat him at, can find a play with the ball. So, listen, it's a level of, you could probably say this is probably the best team we're going to play. Or certainly one of the top two teams we've played so far this season. So it's going to be interesting to see how we do. I mean, Betis away, you touched on it. We ran that game. Those spells in it were great. Game management wasn't good. You don't get 2-0 up away from home and then lose four goals and you don't change your system. Or it was just a strange way to manage that, a 2-0 lead away from home. Hopefully, if we get a 2-0 lead tonight, we've maybe learned something from that and can do something a bit different.
That's a good point.
I mean, much as Partizan Belgrade was a brilliant game, it's kind of, when you go chasing goals and it ends up 5-4 and you go, it's not fun, is it? You need to be a bit of a realist too.
I sometimes look at the Partizan Belgrade game, Lawrence. I actually listened to it in this kitchen on a wee radio across there in that corner, And I mean, you talk to people who were there and they say it was one of the best nights ever, and it's a game that we actually ended up losing, And sometimes I think that shows a mentality for a lot of the Celtic support. Russell, I'm going to come. Powerman 1988 has been in the comments quite a lot here, shouting for the lad Scales. And he says, Scales should have started 100%. I hope he gets some game time the same way Giacomakis. What I would say, before I come to you, Russell, is I fancy that we'll see Scales on Sunday rather than this evening. What's your thoughts about the whole Scales? Because the Irish guys who are on this pod rate him very highly.
I think anyone, when he came on for that sort of 25-minute appearance, I think you had to be impressed. He looked so assured on the ball. He looked so confident, and he played. I mean, to be honest, I don't think anyone knew what the formation was towards the end of that match when he came on. But you've seen him all over the park. But in all aspects, when the ball came to him, he was extremely composed. He looked like he had a level of assurance. But again, you look at his track record and you go, this guy's done it in the Europa League. He scored goals in the Europa League. He's not 19. He's 23. And he's going, this is the stage I was meant to be on at Celtic. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to going, oh, I'm lucky to be here. And I think you're absolutely right. You have to be educated sometimes by the commenters. And sometimes when people know the background of a league, whether it's Derek Ray talking about the Bundesliga, like Laura alluded to earlier, or whether it's commenters that are a fan of Axom and are telling you how good Scales is in the League of Ireland and how good he's been at a European level for, let's be honest, a very small team in European terms, yet against, opposition of, I'm not saying Leverkusen's level, but a good level. You've got to take all that on the chin. I think I liked what I seen of Scales. And for all we talk about lack of options in certain positions, I think at left back now we've seen Bolingoli, Taylor, Scales come on, maybe, I don't know what position he was when he came on, and Montgomery. It's Juranovic. Five in that one sort of position on the park, which I'm not saying were all out and out left back positions that were played in, but in that vicinity, so there is options in certain areas of the team. And
we've always got Callum we can shove there as well.
Sorry?
We can always shove Callum McGregor at left back.
Oh no, we've done that. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of Greg Taylor, and I think we're missing Greg Taylor, and I think this has been shown over the last ducking and diving over the last couple of weeks that Greg Taylor adds a bit of Laura. For me, Laura speaks about guys that can maybe give you a 7 or 8 every week. I think Greg Taylor actually gives you that without being utterly spectacular. Laura, in the comments, there's a lot of people now buzzing for the game. We know that there's a buzzing coming from somewhere, but we're not 100% sure where it's coming from. It's maybe like Polish helicopters outside Boise's house or something like that. We don't know. We didn't get where the buzzing's coming from. And no, somebody came into the comments earlier. None of us can afford aircon, and we all stay in Scotland, and we didn't need air conditioning on. So it's not an air conditioning unit. Laura,
I heard it too, by the way. If it makes them feel better, I heard the buzzing as well, and it's definitely not here.
Laura, this is the first time Paul spoke about it, and other people have spoken about it as well. The anticipation of seeing Jota, Kyogo, and Abada together. Has that got you excited tonight when that team was lined up?
Well, just before I answer that, I appreciate you associated me with the 7 or 8 out of 10, but I have to disagree. I don't think Greg Taylor always gives you that, but we'll move on quickly. But Kyogo, Jota, Abada, I can't think of a more mouth-watering front three, to be honest. It kind of gives you Van Hooijdonk, Di Canio and Cadet vibes, not necessarily that any of them are similar types of players, but that idea that you could get that excited about a trio and what they could provide and hopefully, a goal scoring trio that will. And the other thing about them as well, although Jota doesn't look particularly strong through the middle, he can go right or left, Kyogo can go centre or left, Abada can go right, left or middle by the looks of it, so you've got options there as well that they can switch things round. They can try things if they're not working particularly well. I'm just excited by the individual ability of each of the three of them and the options that they give us. Because if there's one thing that the three of them are, it's exciting. They all like taking players on. They all like scoring goals, and they all thrive in front of a crowd, which I don't think enough of our players have done in years recently.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I can't think of a time where I've been more excited to see a front three at Celtic, to be honest.
Got a couple of minutes just before kick-off, so we'll do a wee round-up of your predictions for the game. I mean, for me, I just want the Germans to come off the pitch talking about the team and not the supporters. If they do that, then I'm going to be quite happy, no matter the result.
A good point.
What do you think yourself?
I think both teams to score. I think it's going to be 3-2.
Wow.
Well, the Celtic or Leverkusen?
Oh, mate. Now you really put me in the spot.
And the way he was going on earlier, we'll go 2-0 up and we'll lose 3-2 probably.
Yeah, so no, I think we'll lose 3-2.
Boys,
Just quickly, on the front three, I think as well. I think Jota to me was the guy who got it at the weekend. I thought he played with an urgency to try and win that game that not enough people perhaps have been of late. I thought he really was playing like the points were so important to him, which I thought was a really encouraging sign. Abada, I've got a funny hunch, is going to be formed into playing through the middle. Laura was saying he could play right, left and centre. I've got a feeling he's a striker in the making, and he could end up being the deputy to Kyogo when James A. Forrest gets back to fitness. And boy, do we miss having him as an option, by the way, week on week. A man with 99 assists, 99 goals for Celtic, you're always going to miss. As for the actual result, both teams to score is a safe bet, Lawrence. I think that's absolutely fair. I think it'll be 3-1, probably Leverkusen. Would I rule us out taking the lead? No.
Not there you go. Laura, final word to yourself.
I'm just trying to get over Russell sailing awful close to giving us a stat with those assists and goals for Forest. I'm in shock.
That was winging it. It's probably got more or less than that.
No, I'm going to try and be a bit positive. I'm going to say it's going to be a tight one, but I'm going to give it 2-1 to us. And before everybody says, we'll come back at full time having got gubbed, and everybody will go, "Oh, you've been mugs. You were all really positive before the game." If you can't be positive before the game, when can you be? 2-1 and come on, the boys.
That is perfect, Laura. That is a great way to sign off. Thank you, the 1,000 people who have been watching us. We'll see you all at halftime in football. Up the leather belts. Let's go.
Cheers.